we stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please, before we start? The flag to your right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have the Mount Marty prayer I'd like to read this morning. Go right on ahead and follow. O God, creator of all things and source of wisdom and knowledge, send your Holy Spirit to guide our thoughts, words, and actions so that everything we do will begin with your inspiration and continue with your guidance and blessing. Help us to speak and act with integrity so that we may uphold the values of Mount Marty University. May we use our talents and abilities in the best ways possible so that you may be glorified and our neighbors served. We pray these things through Jesus, your Son, in the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you. Well, I am the... There it is. You guys did it. All right. Okay, we'll start over. Thanks for being here. I'm Todd Farnham, the incoming president from the Yankton Morning Optimists Club. Some of you know Dave Spencer, who was just up here a second ago. Dave's our outgoing president, and he was pretty instrumental in kind of getting together to start our joint club programs. So it's been really good, very well attended. And again, welcome. I'll give you a little bit of a update here on the Yankton Club. We, as a club, have the motto of Friend of Youth, and that's our mission. That's the international mission as well. We meet on Mondays at Frying Pan in the meeting room, alternating 7 a.m. and noon. And sometimes we don't always remember which one it was, but then we try to get that straight. We have also been very busy in summer baseball concessions. We assist with taking admissions and handing out skates at Open Skate. And by the way, there's some workers needed Friday and Saturday night. Santa's Workshop in the wintertime, held down at Riverside Park. Harvest Halloween train coming up here pretty quick, Saturday. We're currently selling World Series booklets. You might see some blue booklets flying around here. So before you leave, please buy some of those. All the funds that we raise do go to youth programs in Yankton and the area here. We also give out and sell NCAA basketball Sweet 16 sheets. So those work well too for fundraising, and again, all the money goes back to the youth. In the past, we have raised anywhere between $28,000 to $35,000 a year to give back to youth activities. And trust me, that is fun when you can do that, when you get requests coming in for things, to be able to donate money when we can. And we try to benefit the most kids we can in groups. Well, as we move on to our program here, we have some excitement, I know. I want to introduce to you our longstanding president of Mount Marty University, Dr. Marcus Long. He is going to be coming up, giving you a fill-in on kind of things that are going on, and he has a special guest for us that he's going to introduce. So, Dr. Long.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks to the Optimist Club for organizing this. I was actually thinking, I've been doing the State of the Education Address with Dr. Kendall for close to 10 years. Maybe the first couple of years I was here, we didn't do it. I understand he's in Pier today. The governor called a meeting with superintendents, so he's there. And so it's really the Mount Marty show today. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on where we are, but it's great to talk to the Yankton community. I know the media are here too. It's great to have this dialogue and discussion, because when I first started this, we did these speaking engagements with Amy Leone and the county commissioner, and Dr. Kendall, and everybody looked at me and said, well, what are you doing up there? Now it seems everybody is really invested in what Mount Marty is doing. And so it's great to see, it's great to be a part of. I know our students, faculty and staff feel that, and they really do feel like they're a part of the Yankton community. So I just want to say thank you for all that. We see it in our donations in the Lancer Club. We We see it in our donations in the Gregorian Fine Arts Association. A lot of those come from Yankton, and they're increasing. We now have almost 300 people in our President's Society, which is our largest giving society. It's people who give $1,000 or more every year, and a lot of those have Yankton zip codes, and so it's great to see that support across the board. That support also extends to the students who come from Yankton High School and make the trek, well, topographically up, but geographically down Summit to Mount Marty. For the second year in a row, a full 10% of the YHS graduating class is enrolled at Mount Marty University. And for the fourth consecutive year, Yankton High School is our top feeder high school. That's great for Mount Marty, it's great for our community, it's also great for the Yankton community, because that homegrown talent, staying in their hometown to go to school, chances of them finding a job here and starting their families here is awfully high. And so it's great for this community in many ways, and we're proud to be a part of that. I think you can also see how well regarded Mount Marty is now, because it is the top choice of so many of those YHS grads. When you look at all of our Yankton undergraduates in total, for 3 years running, they've had an entering GPA from high school of over a 3.4. That's 3 years in a row, it's been over a 3.4. This year it's a 3.48. So you have A- students coming out of high school, average, believe me, there are a lot of A+ in there too, average coming to Mount Marty University. And so when you see these young people in our community, recognize that they are amazing young people and they do amazing things on this campus and in our community, and we're awfully proud of them. Our undergraduates here come from 33 states and 29 countries, but 67% come from South Dakota and Nebraska. Our largest undergraduate majors in order are business, nursing, education, exercise science, and radiologic technology. And this will surprise some people in the room. We are now 57% men, which I think would surprise a lot of the alumni from the 60s and 70s who are at Mount Marty, for sure. On a related note, the NAIA keeps track of academic rankings. So the NAIA is our National Athletic Association, typically small colleges around the country. And it is coast to coast, but its heart is in the Midwest. So they keep track of academic rankings just as they do keep track of athletic rankings in each sport. And as I said, 250 schools around the country. So for the 2024-2025 academic year, the following Mount Marty teams were in the top 5 in the nation. That's the top 2% in the nation. And there's a long list here. Baseball, second in the nation with an average 3.56 GPA. Women's golf, second in the nation with a 3.93 GPA. That almost means all of our women's golf team have 4.0 GPAs, is what that means. It's amazing. Cheer, fourth in the nation with a 3.72 GPA. Women's indoor track, fifth with a 3.68 GPA. Women's outdoor track, we count them as two separate teams. 3.74 GPA, men's tennis, fifth with a 3.66 GPA. And I'm not done. The following teams are in the top 15 in the nation. Football. So Andy Bernardo told me one time that it's easier to win a national championship in football than it is to get a cumulative GPA of over a 3.0. We have that. We don't have the national championship yet, although we're very competitive, right? And it's great to see how competitive all of these teams are on the field. But certainly over a 3.1 GPA in football collectively. Men's soccer, all of these are in the top 15 in the nation. Football, men's soccer, softball, women's cross country, women's tennis, and volleyball. So, wow. Congratulations to them, congratulations to their coaches, everybody who supports them in the community, incredibly grateful for how supportive they are. And I see Lori Stevenson snuck in back there. I want to shout out to her and Kate Schrum for what they do for our host families program. So many of our young people come from around the country, or some of them really close. There was a kid from Gayville last year who's in the Host Families program, and so many Yankton families just are there to support them and love them and have them over for supper and go to their games and activities, theater activities. It's just a great program. It's great to see the response. I know there's a lot of organization that goes into that, but it's great to see the response from the Yankton community. And just please know how grateful we are as an administration that program is up and running. I'm also really proud of the faculty mentors who are teaching these outstanding students. A little secret here is that every university is only as good as the quality of its faculty. Full stop. That's it. You have to have an outstanding group of faculty who themselves are engaged in their disciplines and transmit that excitement to undergraduates. That's it. In the past 3 years, we've added full-time faculty with doctorates from institutions like Arizona State, Boston University, Purdue, Ohio University, and the universities of Missouri, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Utah. Those are our Yankton neighbors. They're all living here in Yankton, attending our churches, paying taxes, and shopping in our stores. And they're making our university stronger by their good, challenging work and their mentorship of our students. I've spent a lot of time talking about our undergraduate students in Yankton, and it's really important because those are the ones you see. But keep in mind, we also have hundreds of graduate students in Sioux Falls and around the country, including our doctorate in nurse anesthesia, the first such degree program in America. We're the home to that at Mount Marty University. And our nurse practitioner programs for both family and psychiatric nurse practitioners. In addition to our advanced certification in endocrinology, which you've heard me talk about before, but I will circle back to that and say that endocrinology certificate for nurse practitioners, we now have the first standalone endocrinology clinic led by a nurse practitioner in the state. It's outside of Mobridge, and we have nurse practitioners that graduated from our program that are managing patients there in consultation with endocrinologists in Bismarck and Sioux Falls. But they have to drive to either one of those cities to actually find a physician endocrinologist. So that maintenance with diabetes and everything else, we all know what a huge problem that is on the reservations in the rural parts of our state. And so that's one of the things Mount Marty directly has done to impact the health and well-being of our neighbors. So in addition to that, we're now launching a certificate for emergency nurse practitioners in the coming months, another way of serving our neighbors in need. Biotechnology management continues to grow. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute, but Dr. Marc Brown is the founding executive director of our biotechnology management program and also our regulatory science program. We have about 50 students, graduate students in those programs. And again, incredibly high ability students, well mentored by Dr. Brown and so many of his colleagues there. And before I introduce our new president, let me just spend a few minutes on our strategic plan and where MMU has succeeded and in other areas that we're continuing to work on. We have 3 wildly important goals. These are board adopted goals, and our chair of our board of trustees, Rob Stevenson, is here. Thanks, Rob, for coming today. Our focus on rural health and well-being and becoming the top Catholic university in America focused on rural health. That's wildly important goal number 1. Number 2, to continue to increase enrollment. And number 3, to raise funds and educate and serve our outstanding students, both at the undergraduate and the graduate levels. The board has now added a 4th focus on rural education and rural business that our faculty and staff are planning strategies for. So on rural health and well-being, our new status as Avera's preferred nursing school is generating results. In the program's first year, 17 BSN students signed up to work for Avera Health for the next 3 years after they graduate, thus earning financial support in nursing school. And I know of a few of them who no longer have student loans that they have to pay back thanks to that Avera support. They're obligated to work for Avera for 3 years after that. This fall, we brought in 51 new BSN students, many of whom came because of that preferred status. And we're also investing in technology for both graduate and undergraduate nurses, including new simulation center coordinators in both Yankton and Sioux Falls, to provide the latest and greatest in nursing education and technology for our students. We've also hired Dr. Danielle Parati, away from Idaho State University, to be Mount Marty's first Vice President for Health Affairs and Chief Nursing Officer. That is a joint funded program with a position with Avera Health. In increasing enrollment, we also had Yankton's largest undergraduate entering class on record this fall, with 233 new students. And as I said a few minutes ago, they are incredibly high ability. Overall, we had 957 students this fall. That's down about 15 students from last year. But of course, before that, we had 8 consecutive years of enrollment growth. And the reason we're down is largely a result of a large graduating class of MSN students. So it's bittersweet. We like graduating those students and seeing them do amazing things, but obviously you have to work really hard to replace them in the pipeline, especially with graduate programs, because they're shorter than the undergraduate programs too. We also have a little work to do in retention. Our freshman and sophomore retention wasn't as high as we would have liked, and so we are implementing strategies with that too. But again, down 15 students this fall compared to last fall, when we had in total over the last decade about a 28% increase in enrollment. We realized it wasn't going to go on forever. And next fall, our numbers are looking good too. So already we're starting to get numbers from the admissions office, and they're ahead of where we were last fall. So making good progress there. In fundraising and resource development, our endowment is approaching $43 million, which means that slightly below 10% of Mount Marty's operating budget comes from the endowment. It's really important. I won't bore you too much with higher education finance, but it is really important to have that endowment there. Largely those are scholarships, endowed professors, endowed programs. That really does for private universities what state appropriations does for public universities. And remember, we have to compete against public universities. We're in that same consideration set. So when our prospective students are sitting down at the kitchen table with their families and making decisions, we have to be competitive in terms of cost. And if we see that endowment continue to grow, that means it supports the institution, also supports our students and the scholarships we're able to give them. So incredibly important there. So our endowment up to $43 million. It was, I think, at $19 million when I started. There's been a lot of good returns in there too, but we've had a lot of very generous benefactors along the way. Thanks to all those in this room and throughout the Yankton area who support our students. Last year, in terms of dollars raised, this is cash in the door. This doesn't count pledges, cash in the door. We exceeded $3 million for the third time in the last decade, but for the first time, we didn't have a single gift as part of that, which was $1 million or more. So what we're seeing is a greater number of donors are giving collectively more money to the institution. So again, from an administrative perspective, the buy-in is very, very important. Father Thomas Werdekemper is a Mount Marty graduate. He's a Benedictine monk, and when I came here, many people in this room probably know him. He was the campus chaplain, and he used to tell our students all the time that he was praying for them, but they had to cooperate. And that's sometimes easier said than done when you're 18. And I think of St. Augustine, who said, "God, make me holy, but just not yet." That might apply to some people at that age group. But for the last decade, Mount Marty has tried to create a faithful and strong Catholic Benedictine university on the plains. And I'm enormously grateful to the Holy Spirit and a whole bevy of people, including thousands of sisters, trustees, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and donors who have worked really hard to make Mount Marty University what it is today. So I just happened to see Father Thomas on campus last week. He was actually signing the beam for the monastery when I saw him, and I said, "We're continuing to try to cooperate, Father Thomas." And he is very proud of what we've done doing at Mount Marty. But it's also time to turn the page and introduce the future of Mount Marty University. I was actually with a fellow GPAC president. Mark doesn't know this. I was with a fellow GPAC president earlier this week. And naturally, the conversation turned to the new president of Mount Marty. And this president said, "Holy smokes, where did you find that guy?" And I said, "Exactly. With a PhD in molecular genetics and microbiology from the University of Texas at Austin, and a strong academic and administrative career at Colorado State University, Dr. Brown has been an amazing leader on this campus since he joined our faculty as the founding executive director of our biotechnology management program in 2023. He has been a top-notch bench researcher, an amazing business leader, and has extensive experience in and a strong commitment to undergraduate teaching. He is a strong Catholic, and I believe he is absolutely the right person for this job at this date and time. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome the 12th president of Mount Marty University, Dr. Marc Brown.
First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank President Long for his 10 years of service to Mount Marty University. I have the deepest respect for President Long, who, with the support of this community, has placed Mount Marty on a sustainable foundation and on the cusp of achieving preeminent status in this region. For those of you who have not yet met me, I grew up in North Texas, and I met my wife, Alicia, in Fort Collins, Colorado, when I was serving as a molecular oncologist at the Colorado State Cancer Center. We moved to South Dakota a few years ago from a ranch we had just north of Fort Collins, where we ran, my wife and I together, a small cow-calf operation. Let me emphasize the small there, but we have always appreciated the opportunity to raise our boys, Everett and Henry, with those kinds of ag-based values. Our boys are ages 9 and 6, and they are into 4-H, and they are into Cub Scouts, and they are into everything farm and ranch. They're into every sport you can imagine. And so I told the Mount Marty Board of Trustees that we come into this role as a family unit, as sort of a package deal to Mount Marty University. And so we plan to be very active in this community. We'll be on the sidelines as a family, yes, cheering on our student athletes, but we'd also like to be a part of celebrating everything that makes Yankton a thriving community. So when someone has a grand opening for a new business, or some new development, or anything that really contributes to the Yankton community, please send us an invitation. My wife and I would like to be there at that opportunity to celebrate with you, and we'd like to bring our boys with us as well so that they can learn firsthand what it means to support your community. So Dave Spencer and President Long had invited me to say just a few words today about the current state of higher education, and to share with you just a little bit about some of the programs that I developed here at Mount Marty University. Now, I always like to hear the bad news first, and so let me start by sharing the bad news. We know that the higher education landscape is shifting quite dramatically. Over the last few years, we've seen more and more small private institutions close their doors. Over 500 small private institutions have closed their doors in just the last decade. And more often than not, the reason for their demise boils down to diminishing enrollment and the consequences that has on institutional finances. So the good news here is, and there is good news, we are blessed at Mount Marty University to be on a strong upward trajectory for enrollment. So our challenge is somewhat the opposite here. We're growing at a rate that we're now forced to have conversations around how we would like to grow our infrastructure as an institution to ensure that we can accommodate this growing population of residential students here in Yankton. And if we want to continue with that growth, we have to consider what this current generation of students desires from their college education. And there's been a lot of research, national research in that regard. And so we know at the national level that there has been a significant decrease in the overall value that prospective students perceive in a four-year degree. And so we have to be innovative. We have to consider how we can add value to a college degree. How can we make our programs distinct? Students are practical in many ways, and one way would be that they want to know that their degree is going to lead to a rewarding career. And we know that there are certain degrees that we have here at Mount Marty, such as education and nursing, that are those very practical, long-standing, standalone degrees, where you can go out and immediately achieve a rewarding career. And we also know that a lot of our other degrees couple very well with, say, a law degree or a medical degree or some other professional program. But what if a student doesn't want to spend 7 or 8 years or more in a university setting, all the while incurring more debt? The ability to couple undergraduate programs with accelerated, career-focused graduate options is the answer for many of this current generation of college students. We've already had undergraduates at Mount Marty who have excelled in our graduate courses. And so we've been having conversations about developing options for our undergraduates to take a few graduate courses among their electives that would allow them to complete both their bachelor's and a master's in just 5 years. For example, many of our degrees, from biology at one end of the spectrum to business at the other end of the spectrum, and a lot of degrees in between, couple very well with our biotechnology management graduate program, meaning that in just 5 years, a student would enter a rewarding career with an excellent salary for supporting their family. That same opportunity is there for coupling other graduate degrees with undergraduate programs. So let me share just one example of what this can look like. I spent about 20 years as an executive in the biotechnology industry. All the while, most of my focus was in developing life-saving medicines for everything from breast cancer and heart disease to Ebola and other infectious diseases. Unfortunately, during my time in industry, and this is no secret, I witnessed a number of disturbing trends. One of those, obviously, is the precipitous increase in drug prices that we're all experiencing now. And so a few years ago, before I even had a formal role or any formal relationship with Mount Marty University, I had a conversation with President Long about my desire to train, get this, ethically minded leaders for the pharmaceutical industry. What a novelty. Ethically minded leaders for the pharmaceutical industry who are grounded with a respect for the dignity of human life, and who recognize that life-saving medicines aren't just for certain individuals, certain populations, or those parts of the world with the deepest pockets. The idea here then was to train future leaders in a way that we could transform the pharmaceutical industry from the top down. So we developed the Graduate Biotechnology Management Program to train students on the executive track of the industry, to train future directors, future division vice presidents, future CEOs, CFOs, and everything in between. All of our faculty for that program are current industry leaders in the pharmaceutical industry. Again, the idea being to pass that knowledge on directly from today's executives to tomorrow's executives in that industry. So forget about textbooks that are often outdated by the time they go to print. Our biotechnology students are learning directly from the very leaders that they aspire to be. Our faculty from industry also share their extensive network connections, and that's critical in any business, but particularly in the pharmaceutical industry. And because our faculty are all decision makers in that industry, our students often have job offers long before they graduate from that program. Most of our graduates start off in roles such as a project manager, which places them really on the first rung of that executive ladder to the C-suite. Our graduates' starting salaries from that program average $110,000. And so to put that in perspective, keep in mind, these are students who, for the most part, have just a 4-year degree and then 1 year of graduate training, making those types of salaries. So think about the value add that we're able to provide our students by offering more of these types of accelerated graduate degrees at Mount Marty University. We've tested the waters with our biotech program, and it has worked out very, very well for our students. And so now we're ramping up, strategically to develop new programs using this tried and true model to provide the very best educational value for our students. So this isn't some marketing gimmick just to get more students in the door. Creating this kind of value in a degree is simply the right thing to do for our students. And putting our students first, we're confident that we'll continue to maintain that upward trajectory for enrollment while providing the very best value in education. Thank you.
Do you guys like to grill them with some questions and all, if you like?
Let's not use the word grill. Remember, I'm a short timer. Yes, sir.
How much communication do you do with industry to see what kind of template you're expecting your students to fulfill, so that when the student comes out, there's a match already lined up, so that the people who are hiring know that they're getting the specifications that they give to you?
I could speak just for our biotechnology management program and our regulatory science program. The fact that we have, again, staffed those programs, the faculty side, entirely by industry professionals, means that we have direct input from those professionals, and that's being passed on directly to those students. And that would be the desire really for all of our programs, not to be staffed entirely by industry professionals, but to have faculty who have that real world experience, who can speak on behalf of those industries, and they know what those industries are looking for. And then obviously internship opportunities for our students to be able to go out and experience, what's often a steep learning curve, translating what you're learning in the classroom to a real world situation. But Mount Marty has always been, a program that is focused, or a university that's focused on training individuals for those careers. And so it's my understanding at the undergraduate level that that's a major part of the curriculum.
Well, and there are quite a few, I completely agree with that, Mark. There are quite a few people in this room who take our students as interns at their businesses and help mentor them. That does a couple of things. As you said, gives them real world experience. What is my work life going to look like? And second of all, it helps plant them in Yankton. And so the more students that we have who are interning in Yankton businesses, the higher likelihood that they're going to stay here. And not always being drawn to the big city, which in our case sometimes is Sioux Falls and Omaha, because that's where college people sort of want to gravitate to. But if they have these anchors in our community here, they really do it, especially some of the kids from the bigger cities like Omaha, appreciate the safety and the small town feel that a community like Yankton has. And so if we can consciously continue to develop those relationships in the community, we'll be able to keep more here.
So you do have industries, or better says a bench, or better says a set of contacts at these Vera and Stanford and so forth that are dialogue continuing, so that you continually adjust and readjust.
And the banks, so I see a few bank CEOs in the room for those business majors and others. Absolutely. Other questions?
Are there thoughts probably of campus expansion for rooms, style of rooms that students are expecting nowadays? The little duplex rooms and things like that go beyond the old dorm rooms.
Sure. So plans for the future. is up to the new president and the board of trustees. I'll tell you that, when we added Rickenbach Suites here now 6 years ago, that was the first residence hall construction we've had on campus since the 60s. And so our students now have those options of suite style living and individual rooms too. So we have met some of those needs, although I would say that at most colleges and universities, first year residence halls look pretty much the same everywhere, and it's not going to be glorified living at most colleges and universities. But we certainly do need to continue to meet those students' needs, and we need to work on infrastructure, as I think Mark has pointed out.
Hey, can I just add to that, Mark? Part of the board of trustees conversation about potential living of the future has, been a lot of people are doing a lot of work and have been, and new dorms are getting built at a lot of places that are just the old traditional two-person dorm rooms, and that really surprised me to learn that a lot of the new ones, we all think of. And one of the pillars at Mount Marty is community, and so the new wave of every kid gets their own room, just like they have at home. That maybe the new wave of that has been going on for 20 years or more now. Maybe isn't the right thing to do, especially at Mount Marty, as we're thinking about community and how we get along and work with each other and all that. So it's been an interesting conversation, in the facilities committee at Mount Marty with the board of trustees.
Yeah. Other questions?
Do you have developers that are possibly building, instead of having Mount Marty build them, have the developers come in and build the suite dorms? Is that
One of the options on the table. We're looking at all options.
Is Mount Marty offering, and probably aren't, and I'm aware, my kids are long gone, good, advanced placement courses for high school students, online, those types of things that are another tie for students to Mount Marty. What has been done? I know there's things going on.
Yep.
I'm not aware of them. Maybe some aren't either.
Do you want me to start? So I'll do a retrospective here, and one of the reasons that we don't have, like many of our graduate programs are online, right? And so we have been very aggressive in that space, actually. We don't have undergraduate degree programs online for a couple of reasons. They're ubiquitous, like every college and university has undergraduate programs. And this whole idea Rob talked about hospitality, and another one of our core values is community. And we really believe that formative time of life between 18 and 23, living on campus and learning how to live with other people is really an important part. So our focus has been on traditional in-seat undergraduate education. Now, there are certainly options going forward to look at innovative ideas and strategies. But as I think Mark pointed out a few minutes ago, we do have to be innovative because there are so many other programs out there at the graduate and undergraduate level. What is our niche? What can we do differently than so many other institutions in the marketplace? And I think Dr. Brown focused on a couple of those in his presentation.
Yeah, I think that, at the undergraduate level, again, getting back to this idea of a residential community, that's always going to be the core of this institution. But I think we can have the benefit also of an online presence at the graduate level. And the way this plays out for our undergraduates right now is, in our biotechnology management program and in our regulatory science program that are offered exclusively online, which means that, yes, we've got a handful of participants in those programs who happen to be from this region, but, they're in everywhere from San Francisco to Boston to Houston. They're all over the place. They're in a lot of the hubs for those industries, and looking at the growth trajectory of those industries in the Midwest. By the way, the Midwest is the fastest growing region for both of those industries, and so that's going to be a real job opportunity for our graduates here in the coming decade. But imagine as an undergraduate, being able to take one of those graduate courses. and you log into a virtual classroom where you can see all the faces of the other students. But in that case, they're engaging with students who are literally all over the country, and some of them that aren't even in the United States. Some of them are actually junior executives from those industries who are looking for that extra credential to be able to climb that executive ladder. What a really, really unique experience for an undergraduate to be able to engage with other students from around the country that way in their classrooms, but yes, to be able to engage with industry executives in that way. And so, yeah, keeping it as a residential community is key and core for Mount Marty, but providing some of those opportunities that online education can bring is also a benefit for our students.
When you talk about ethics and pharmaceutical development, going back to the dark ages of the 1970s, I remember animal-based insulin was $25 to $40 a vial. And at the time they said, if we can biosynthesize this stuff, it would be so cheap. Well, here we are doing it now, it's $100 or $300 a vial. How do you make product development available to everyone without executives at the top saying, we have a group of people that demand our drugs, so we can charge anything we want? How do you make that happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, the United States ends up subsidizing most of the rest of the world when it comes to R&D for the pharmaceutical industry. You know, we're able to charge what the market will provide here, and in other parts of the world, those prices are simply capped. And if you want to get into those markets, then you sell your therapeutics cheaper. The benefit for the U.S. is we get first access to a lot of those therapeutics because they are developed here and approved for the U.S. market first. But it is there's no fine line between charging a fair market value and price gouging. And that's some of what I have experienced in the pharmaceutical industry. It just takes a few bad players in that industry to cross over into that world of price gouging where we all end up paying for it. That's where, I've got to admit, I spent, over a decade thinking through this and how do we fix this? It's a broken industry. If you regulate those prices, sorry, I'm going in a very different direction from Mount Marty, you got me excited here. If you regulate those prices, you crash the investment in innovation in that industry. And so you got to be careful about that. And so without regulation, you've just got to count on the leadership from those companies to make the right decisions. And this is why it was a no-brainer for me when I spoke with President Long about developing ethically minded leaders for the industry and changing it. Most biotech programs are for individuals who are going to start off at the bench top, R&D. This program, again, is designed to train the leaders of the industry so that we can have an impact from the top down. And I think until we have an impact at that level in the industry, we're going to continue to see ridiculously high prices unless there's some regulation around it.
It seems to me in that way, the psychology of strength and ethics and all that, to be able to withhold shareholders' demands, to be able to fight against board of directors things that are, that's gotta be tough when you're put in that position. Or maybe students be able to get access to some of those kind of concepts that have gone on, or that meet people that have fought that.
They do, and our students are required to do an internship as part of the program, and because it is virtual in nature, and because the way we do business in a lot of places now is virtual. I mean, board meetings are held virtually in a lot of places, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, and so we have students who are getting internships with CEOs and chief operating officers and CFOs with these companies. Have an opportunity to be a part of those conversations and to hear what's going on and to hear the challenges of that CEO who's trying to make really good, sound, ethically minded decisions, but they've got these other stakeholders that are saying, we invested a lot of money here. This is a high risk, high reward industry, and we want our high reward out of what we just invested in. And so the students are seeing firsthand those challenges so that we can bring that back into the classroom and talk through that, and they can learn how to navigate some of those issues.
Dr. Long, can you talk about how, just in general, Brown's talking about his programs, but in general, how Marty brings Benedictine values and some of the ethical teachings just into all of the programs.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Rob. It's one of the reasons when Dr. Brown and I had this conversation probably close to 5 years ago now, about, he was talking about ethical leaders and how to train them. Certainly our Midwestern values came in there, but then we quickly started talking about our Benedictine values at Mount Marty. And one of the things I think we really strive hard to do is to have this universal experience with our undergraduates, so they understand, and also our graduate students, they understand what they're being called to do, but also that they're not the center of the universe, right? And so that's sometimes difficult for people in that age group to fully comprehend and understand, especially given our youth culture that we have now. So we have developed this Benedictine leadership curriculum where they understand collectively, and they can talk about, and they're on trips and other opportunities to understand what they're being called to do, what their place is in our world, and this whole 1,500-year tradition of Benedictine spirituality. It is actually a gift, and I would go so far as to say it should be more broadly applied throughout our society right now, because we all are sort of in this together, and we need to work together, and how do we collectively build community? And so I'm so excited about our students and what our futures, especially here where so many of our students stay after they graduate and become leaders in business and civic organizations and communities. And I think the sky's the limit. So we have for the past decade, actually longer before that, the Benedictine Leadership Institute was set up by the sisters 20 years ago to fund priorities for this common understanding of this great Benedictine tradition and how it gets applied in modern day. Yes.
What do you see as the future growth in your business program, and in particular with entrepreneurship?
Well, we're finding a lot of our students are coming into the program with that idea in mind, and so it's not the entrepreneurship side. So it's not necessarily the first intention of the program. We were looking to plug in leaders into some of the more established sides of the industry to change that from the top down. But we're excited to see that there's a large number of students that are interested in learning about, it's a biotech program, but it's everything from business management and finance for the industry to the regulatory side of the industry. And yes, there's also some science involved with that industry too. And so having these students who are joining the program who say from day one that we're into this because we want to launch our own company. We have an idea, we have some innovations. We've got 2 students right now who graduated from the biotech management program and we're so excited about what they learned in that program that they rolled over into our regulatory science program. They're generating software as part of the regulatory science program, something that they came up with in the biotech program. They're generating software that will make the FDA more efficient in their processes for reviewing applications and the whole regulatory side of the industry in that regard. I've seen what they're working on, and it's amazing. I never could have thought of that on my own, and it does have the potential to revolutionize that side of the regulatory side of the industry. And so that's just one example of what we're seeing there. But I'd say we probably have 12 or 13 of our students in the biotech management program who don't want to work for Pfizer someday. They want to launch their own companies. And there's something to that. If you can make it, if you can build from an early stage company to a clinical stage company, and then yes, make it up to that commercial stage company, that's a way to really flip the industry on its head and create some competitors against some of the pharmaceutical giants that are out there.
Dr. Long? Yes, sir. I think that internships are crucial for students in terms of finding out if they're in a field they love, or maybe a field they don't want to be in, they want to go someplace else, What majors in Mount Marty do have internships, externships, whatever you want?
All of them. It's actually a requirement, and we just added, I think, the last couple of years, biology was one that didn't, and so many of those students are pre-med, so they're out there doing shadowing and other opportunities too. But I think all of our programs do that. That's sort of a hallmark, this applied understanding. Benedictines, again, about get your hands dirty, get in there and do it, understand what you're going to be doing. I'll say our outstanding teacher education program, we make sure that those freshmen are in the classroom, because the last thing you want is to get all the way through the program. And some institutions do this. You get all the way through the program, you're doing their student teaching. My sons have a friend who did this. And then you realize when you're doing your student teaching as a senior that you don't want to be a teacher. That's not good. So here, one of our hallmarks of our program is get them in the classroom soon so they understand what they're going to be doing. Dave, I don't know if you wanted to talk about what that big business group does in terms of internship and broader understanding, but since that is our largest program, I think there are good applications there.
Yeah, that's a common question from students and parents as they come into just in the recruiting level stage. And obviously the answer is we do require that internship. And it isn't just, we don't just say, well, you're gonna do it before your senior year. We're very open to, some of them, if they got sophomore standing, we're gonna do that internship early, just the same thing. Maybe I like this field of finance, maybe I like accounting, that might change. Maybe I'm gonna go into marketing, or some will be different. So to get that hands-on, and really shout out to the Yankton business community too, because they're very open to us having a lot of our internships are here either during the summer or during the fall semester or during the spring semester. We have them year round. And they don't have to be back home where they're from, but it can be. We have some that have gone to a whole different, especially the international students, have done them all over the United States with the connections they have, which is kind of neat. So, and we obviously follow up with them, like, what did you learn and what didn't you like? What did you like? And where do you see yourself going with it? So it's more than just a summer job.
Anything else?
I'll say one other thing, if that's okay. It's just important to me to share with you that I've gone down the pharmaceutical track here quite a bit in this conversation, but I wanted to share with you just a little bit about how I developed such a passion for Mount Marty University, because in those conversations with President Long, I saw this initially as an opportunity, the right institution to develop that program for training ethically minded leaders for all the reasons I said before. At that point, I had no formal role at Mount Marty University, and I had no intention, and I don't think the university had any intention of me having a long-term role here. But as I got into developing that program, and I started to engage with the university community here, that started to change. And I would tell you that my mom would tell you, maybe I should say that, my mom would tell you that she's always, how does she word this? She's, Mark, you're just in tune with the Holy Spirit. You listen well, and that's something that she taught me to do. Yes, listen. And as I got in more conversations with individuals in this community, I've been at a lot of other academic institutions, but I never felt, I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, I never felt what I have felt in my conversations with people in this community. This university very quickly captured my heart and my spirit in a way that I just did not expect. And I've shared sort of how I finally listened enough to hear it loud and clear over the years. That first year that I was working with the institution, I had the opportunity to participate in a blessing ceremony here on campus. And I got tears in my eyes, and I'm not a guy that cries a lot. And so just having those tears in my eyes in that ceremony, I thought, okay, there's something moving me here. And later that year, as part of the graduation events, I participated in a baccalaureate mass. And I was already so taken with the institution at that point that I actually invited my parents up from Texas to come to that mass with me. And so yes, there I was with tears in my eyes again, looking at these graduates and their parents celebrating this great achievement they'd had together. But as I processed out with the rest of the faculty at the end of that mass, I looked back and I saw my mom and dad. There was my mom with tears in her eyes. There was my dad with tears in his eyes. First time I've ever seen tears in my dad's eyes. And so this went on over a number of events where I just felt moved by the Holy Spirit. And it was this last year's baccalaureate mass that I invited my wife and our sons to come to that mass with me. And I realized, standing there again with tears in my eyes, that God had pulled in my entire family into this community, and realized there's something very, very different, very special about this community. And so yes, I've had a great appreciation for the opportunity to develop the programs I've been involved with here. But I'm much more excited about the opportunity to get to engage with the broader university community and see what the next 10 years holds for Mount Marty University.
We're cooperating.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very exciting. Well, I moved to Yankton in 1990 to add to my career as an audiologist, so I spent pretty much all my career here. And this isn't a lie, Mount Marty was kind of known as, oh, that's those buildings up by the chapel over there. And to see the changes that I've seen in 35 years or however long I've been here, and then to hear today, it is completely exciting. And we're all in for a great ride here, I think. So thank you, gentlemen, again. Just a quick reminder, our next joint service club meeting will be in this room on January 29th, and our fellow Sertoma club will be hosting that. And so if you would like, we normally end our meetings with reading of our creed, and there are some table pamphlets there for you if you need that. Marcus will be able to read it to all the rest of you, I'm not sure. Follow me. Promise yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, that all health, happiness, and prosperity for every person's need. Make all your friends feel there is something in them. To look at the sunny side of everything and God doesn't come true. Think only of the best, work only for the best, and expect only the best. To use just enthusiasm, success of others is our own. To forgive mistakes of the past, and press on for greater achievements of the future. To enrich your promises at all times, and rid every future Jesus must find. Give so much time in the improvement of yourselves that you have no time to criticize others. Too smart for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, too happy to live in the presence of trouble.